welcome today. We're going to talk about goal training and how you guys can utilize goals to take your business to the next level. So, why goals? So why goals? Well, I believe goals, we all know goals are important, but I think sometimes we fail to visualize why goals are important. So I like to use the analogy of having a GPS in a car. Well, GPS is a great tool, but if you don't put an address in the GPS, you're going to drive around aimlessly. You may get to your spot, you may get there, but the chances are it will take a lot longer to get there, or you won't get there at all. Versus a GPS that you actually put your address in. Well, that is your point. That's where you want to be. So goals are just like putting that address into the GPS. It allows you to have a point on the map where you want to go. So it allows you to use your business to get to where you want to in life. The other reason I think why goals is it's a law of attraction. What you visualize is what you attract. Another great example of this is who has bought something recently, something new recently. It could be a new iPhone, it could be a new car, it could be a new pair of glasses, whatever it may be. But before you buy it, you think it's really original, really cool. But the second you buy it, you notice all these people having it. I mean, I can remember when I bought my truck, I just loved it, right? And then I drive down the road, I'm like, man, there are a lot of white Tundras in town. Like, I'm not very original at all. So I had to get a lift kit on it and redneck it up a little bit. That's okay. That's just me. So it's a law of attraction. When we write things down, when we set goals, we visualize them in our mind. There's a great book called Napoleon Hill.
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. I was thinking Paid to Think, which is a whole other book. But Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And it's all about that law of attraction. It's all about visualizing, writing things down, and how our subconscious mind allows us to accomplish things that we would never accomplish with our conscious mind. So, whole other story, whole other class in general, but the law of attraction is a legitimate thing, and I think goals allow us to have that in our life. So, some real basics of writing goals. A lot of you guys may know this if you've ever written goals before. However, as basic as it may seem, I have high-level people in my business that I tell we need to write goals, and they give me a bullet list of things we need to do. So even though it's basic, I have very high-level people not getting it right. So I think it's very important to go over the basics of goal writing. So the first basic of goal writing is it needs to be extremely specific. So we need to define our goals. So as a quote is once said, define the goals, it should have a D there, define the goals are attained, foggy goals are forgotten. So when you define something, it makes it very easy to obtain it, or at least have it in front of you. When it's a foggy goal, when it's not very specific, it's very easy to forget. Measurable. You know, a lot of people will say, I want to be rich, but you know, that's not really measurable. So we need to have very specific goals. They need to be very measurable goals. To say I want to be a better husband, well, there's nothing measurable about that. There's nothing. To say I want to be rich, I want to make more money. I mean, nothing about that is measurable. You know, maybe what I should say is, I want to be a better husband. I'm going to do so by spending more time with my wife, by having 3 date nights a month, by spending more time with my kids, taking time away from my wife 2 times a week. Do you see how specific and measurable those goals are? Deadlines. So all goals, they need to be specific, they need to be measurable, and most of them need to have deadlines. So a deadline is the time frame that this goal is accomplished. However, I have found that having a final deadline is extremely important. But having interim deadlines is just as important. So if you have this big goal, maybe your big goal is to do 100 transactions this year. Okay? Well, you need to break that into monthly goals. It's not 10 a month, let's just say it'll be 120, I know my math. But let's just say that's 10 a month. So now every month you need to look at your goals and say, that's my interim goal, is 10 a month. Because my 10 a month is going to get me to 100 a year. Does that make sense? So 120 a year. So it's very important to have deadlines. But don't just create one big deadline at the end. We need to create deadlines that we can reach along the way to see if we're actually even coming close to our final deadline. They need to be challenging. Challenging means it's hard to obtain, but it's not impossible. So if you did 20 transactions last year, don't make a goal of doing 200 transactions this year. That would be a stupid goal. It's not challenging, that would be stupid. I mean, unless you have something really crazy that's come along in your life, that really makes you think you're going to do it. Like maybe you got the new Fannie Mae contract or something and you know all these deals are going to come to you. Maybe that would be a goal to have. But they need to be challenging, but they need to be able to be reached as well. And then most importantly, and I think a lot of people miss this, and you know that I'm about making money and I'm about success, but I'm also about values and morals that are ethics and what we find important to ourselves. And your goals need to align with your beliefs and values. I see people a lot of times will write out goals, and then I wonder, it doesn't really align with what they really believe or the values that they may have. And I think people write goals based on what other people think they should do versus what they should do. So those are just some basic goal writing skills. So when you're writing your goals, make sure they hit all those points. So I believe there's 5 areas, at least I find, that I write goals in. And I think if you guys write goals in these areas, you'll find a much more success. You should have physical goals. You know, without our health, we're worthless. I just went through some real minor stuff recently where I wasn't feeling well. I can't even tell you how the last 6 months were affected with my energy level, with my ability to handle stress, with my want to. I mean, I just didn't want to get up and go at times. I had to make myself. So making sure that your physical being is strong, you're working out every day, you're staying fit, you're keeping your weight down, all those things that make us healthy. We need to have mental goals, and by mental goals I mean education. How many books are you going to read a month? How many books are you going to read a week for some of us? Some of us, we should probably worry about how many we're going to read in a year. But other of us, we may want to get to the weekly part. How many courses am I going to take at FAR? How many seminars am I going to go to over weekends? Those type of things. So what are our mental goals this year? What are our spiritual goals? You don't have to be a Christian. I am. I'm proud of that. You don't have to be. You can be Jewish. You can be whatever. Whatever you are is fine, but you need to have spiritual goals. I believe that we are spiritual beings. I think it's important that you have spiritual goals. Family goals. You may be married, you may be single. It doesn't matter, you still have a family. So it's very important. And if you're single, you may have somebody you're dating that you want to be your future spouse. So it's important that you take time and you set family goals. And then obviously business and monetary goals. And I bring this up because I believe that a lot of classes, if you go to for real estate and business courses, they'll talk about this. But I think they fail to talk about a lot of these. And I just want to bring it up because I want you guys to know what I believe and what I know is there was times in my life when I was really successful here, okay? But my physical was weak. I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't staying in shape. I was stressed out of my mind. I was working at 4 a.m. I was staying until 6 to 8 a.m. or p.m. My family, I'm sure, sacrificed because of it. And hopefully my spiritual didn't sacrifice as much as it probably did. And I spent a lot of time mentally also preparing and reading books. So while I looked like a big success to some people on the outside, internally I felt like a failure. So success is not, there's success, you can have success in each of these, but to have overall success, you need to have success in all of these. So I think it's very important that you set goals in all 5 areas of your life if you really want to feel successful and reach where you want to be. So I wrote a blog last year, and it's still one of my best blogs, one of my favorite blogs that I wrote, probably not one of my best blogs. I don't know that any of them are that best. But it's one of my favorite that I wrote, and it simply, it was about goal writing. And I'm going to send an email out when we're done, and I'll have some of this information, and I'll also have 3 blogs that I wrote that I think are helpful in setting goals. But I was listening to a podcast, and the gentleman said, you know, what we should do when we write our goals is to, before we write a single thing, is to stop and fast forward to the end of the year. So we should stop right now and fast forward, before you guys write goals, stop and fast forward to the end of 2014. So when we stop and fast forward to the end of the year and ask ourselves this very question, what would make this the best year ever? It really puts into context what our goals should be. I'd never done that until last year. I'd always set my goals, and I think in your mind you automatically ask that question, sort of, but actually visualizing, closing your eyes, taking time, spending 30 minutes, and saying, what would make this the best year of my life? It really puts it into perspective of what would really have to happen. Because some of the things that you think would have to happen don't. You don't. To be the best year ever, you may not want them to happen because they may keep you from being successful in other areas of your life. So, if you fast forward to the end of the year, what would have to accomplish to make this the best year of your life? once you do that, you need to write down the answers to these questions in the 5 categories I mentioned before. So what were the 5 categories before?
Physical,
Mental,
spiritual.
family, business, monetary.
Perfect. So if you ask that question in each of these categories and write down those answers, not in a goal format, just it could be a paragraph. It should look like my physical. I would look like this, I would act like this, I would go to the gym this often, whatever it may be. Family. I would hit 2 family vacations. I'd spend time with my kids every morning before they go to school. I'd be home for them before they went to bed in the evening. Whatever that may be, I would never miss a play or a recital. I would never miss a practice. Whatever that is for you, it doesn't mean it's the same for me. But what would make it the best year ever? So write those down, and this will be the starting point to writing your goals. Now what you do is you set your goals around your desires versus what you think others want of you. Because I think what we do otherwise is we think, okay, what does my boss want of me? What do my clients want of me? What does my wife want of me? Which is probably a good question for me to ask. But instead of setting goals around what you think others want of you, now it allows you to set your goals around what would be the greatest year of your life. And if you accomplish those goals, well, then it could be the greatest year of your life. Every year you can make it the next greatest year of your life. So I just think it's a real practical way to start your goal setting. But of course, we're here not for personal development, but we're here for real estate goals, and I know that. But I think it's very important that if we're going to be successful in real estate, that we have a real grounded approach of life. Because if there's one profession that can get you taken away from being grounded, it's sales. Because it's one of those professions that doesn't stop. You can do it until midnight, and you can start at 5 a.m. It can never stop if you don't watch it. So I think it's really important that we set goals around our whole being and our whole view of success, and not just real estate. But the rest of this time we're going to talk about real estate goals and how I feel like you guys should go about setting your goals for the year to come. Okay? So I think there's 5 key points to setting your goals in real estate. The one that we all know, and that would be the first one we all talk about, is how much money do you want, your desired income. So I think that's one of the 5 points of real estate goals. The next is lead tracking. Tracking your leads and your lead sources is probably, and this is probably something that a lot of agents don't do, but it's probably the single most important aspect of your business if you're going to set goals. At least the goals that I think you should set in the way that I think you should set them. So if you're not currently tracking your leads, the number of leads, if you're not at least tracking the number of leads you get in on a year, even if you're not tracking your lead sources, you need to at least track the number of leads you get in a year. And you'll see why here in just a second. Your conversion rates, we'll talk about conversion rates in a minute. This is similar to something I went over before in our economic model of the real estate business, but that economic model really helps you set your goals. So the conversion rates, and that is how is my conversion from taking a lead into I call lead suspects. All those leads are suspects. Turning those suspects into prospects, and now how can I turn that prospect into a buyer or seller? So those are all conversion rates. So you go from lead to prospect, that's a conversion rate. From prospect to buyer seller is another conversion rate. And you'll see how conversion rates drive your entire business. So that is extremely important, and I'll talk about how we can increase our conversion rate as well. Coaching and education. That should be a goal. If part of your goal in business is not education or coaching, how to take your business to the next level, then you're probably not making the right goals. Nobody can do this alone. Nobody can. Everybody says it's maybe an overused analogy. But Tiger Woods has a coach. He's the greatest golfer. I don't know if he still is because I don't golf much, but if he's not now, he was the greatest golfer. But he still had a coach. He still got coached every single day. So it's very important to have people hold you accountable and have coaching and education. And then I believe in MacDoc Realty, this isn't for all real estate agents, but if you're with MacDoc Realty, you should have a goal for lifestyle income. And the reason I say that is because if you don't intentionally set a goal for lifestyle income, you're going to forget about it. Because it's non-traditional enough in the approach that it's not ingrained in your body to continually want to talk to agents about joining another brokerage. But when you put it as a goal, it will be ingrained in you, and it will be just as important as finding a buyer or seller. And trust me, this is not about me. You guys all know at MacDoc Realty, Every agent you bring on, MacDoc Realty makes less. I'm not promoting it for me, I'm promoting it for you. There's nothing more powerful. Take it from somebody that has it. There's nothing more powerful than passive income. You can work your entire life and get to the end and your income stops. Or you can work a little bit on passive income every year and along the way work less and less and have that lifestyle income support what you want to do. And that is a completely different lifestyle than somebody that works until they're 80 years old because they don't have a retirement plan. So I think it's extremely important that you would make that part of your business goals. So first off, you need to know your business. So tracking your numbers is extremely important in goal setting in the business of sales and real estate. As we talked about before, your numbers of conversion rate, your numbers of leads, your numbers of phone calls if you prospect, the amount of money that you spent on assistance, the amount of money that you spent on marketing materials, whatever that may be. You really need to know your business. So you need to be tracking all your numbers. If you're not doing it currently, it will make it harder to set goals this year. I'll just be honest with you. You're kind of behind the 8 ball in setting goals. It doesn't matter, you got to start somewhere, it's okay. But this year, if you're not tracking them already, then one of your major goals should be to start tracking your numbers. And then there should be a goal at the end of the year that's measurable. How well did I track my numbers? And I would measure it each month. Because if you don't measure it each month, it's going to go to the wayside. 6 months from now, you're going to forget all about it. And then at the end of the year, you're going to miserably miss that goal. So it's one of those that you can have interim goals set. And knowing your numbers from last year is very helpful in setting your goals for this year. If you didn't track your numbers last year, that's fine. Next year, you'll know to. But if you didn't track them this year, you can at least go back and get what you can. I mean, you can get from the MRIS how many deals you did. You can find out your total volume from our office. You can find out your total income, if you don't know that already, hopefully you do, from our office. You can find out your lifestyle income, total pay, all those things. So you need to go back and be almost a detective of yourself. Try to compile all those numbers and create something to base your goals on going forward. So the basic formula. Don't let this scare you to death. It's really pretty quite simple. And you'll find that this formula, which I'm going to give you guys in a spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a spreadsheet, and it's made with formulas in it. So when you put one thing in, it automatically changes it to another. Okay, so it automatically calculates for you. I gave this out during the economic business model as well. So you may already have it, but you may have used it for other purposes of creating that model. But that model is sort of your goal setting for your business, and it's a real neat way to set up your business. Now, a lot of people teach it. Mike Ferry teaches this model. Okay, you can also find this model in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller, which is the founder of Keller Williams, which is, by the way, a great book. I would highly recommend it. So it's a proven practice. It's how I always set goals. It's how when I was with Kathy Belcher, she always set goals. So I would highly recommend that you use this. So you'll have the spreadsheet sent to you. So if you guys use this formula, you'll find it very helpful. So what you have here is at the top. With the bottom, let's go from the bottom up. What you have is you have your net operating income and additional compensation. So I'll explain additional compensation in just a minute. But what it does is it takes all these numbers, filters them down, and tells you what you would make on net operating income based off what you do for your buyer sides or seller sides and your buyer sides. Okay, that's the quick and down of it. Now down here it says additional income and then lifestyle income. So your additional income, you see this person did a total gross revenue of $187.5, okay? But they're going to make 90% income for the difference of 120 and 87.5 for $67,000 approximately of 90-10 split. Does that make sense? Because you bump it at MacDoc Realty, you go to a 90-10. So what that does is that calculates it for you. Anytime it's over 120, the spreadsheet will automatically calculate your additional income for the 90-10. Does that make sense? So this person made $10,000 more by bumping to a 90-10 split. And then, because I say it's part of the overall model, and if we don't talk about it, we're missing it, then it also has your lifestyle income. So if somebody was to introduce 4 agents, and this is maybe a little aggressive, but the average gross of the agents was $90,000. We could do it at 50, we could do it at 75. I normally do it at 75. Their total lifestyle income would be $36,000, so their total additional compensation with 90% income and total and lifestyle income would be $46,000. So they would make $165 for the year. I just want you to understand how that part of the equation works. But back to what really matters. So it starts here with seller listing appointments and buyer listing appointments. Now, those listing appointments are the part where I call those prospects. They go from suspects to prospects. But what's not on this, and what you can take to the next level with this, is what's not on this is the step before your prospects. Okay, if you've got a listing appointment or seller appointment with them, seller or buyer appointment with them, then obviously you've already taken them from the point they were suspects, aka lead, and brought them to the point that they were prospects. So really, this should go back even another step. And what you should do is you should take your total leads in with your conversion rate, and that'll get you how many buyer side appointments you're able to get, how many listing appointments you're able to get, if that makes sense. So let's just assume that you're going to go off your appointments. So if you can get 50 seller appointments, 50 buyer appointments, and your conversion rate, meaning that 1 out of every 2 that you meet with that are sellers, you get to list their house. So there's 50 listing appointments, your conversion rate is 50%, now you have 25 seller sides taken. Does that make sense? So your conversion rate is 50%. It's probably not bad. Now, of those 25 listings, you're going to say that 50% of those listings sold. I think that's a pretty poor conversion rate, because if you're a good listing agent, you need to be taking them at the right price, under the right terms. You need to be setting the proper expectations with your clients so they understand that if this thing doesn't sell in 30, 45 days, we're going to do some price drops. That's all part of being a great listing agent, is you have to educate the client up front, right? So at 50%, I think that would be a very poor conversion rate, but we'll just say it, and that means they sold 12 and a half seller sides. Average sales price, let's say, is $250, and then your volume, 3% commission, your gross is 93.7. Does the same thing here, total. You can see how it works from that point forward. Okay. Now, what I want to stress to you is this is why it's so important to know your numbers. Now, what you can do is you can work from here and go backwards, okay? But this spreadsheet's made pretty neat because you can take last year's numbers and put them in, and then you can tweak them for what you think you can do. So if last year you had 50 seller appointments and 50 buyer appointments, and you think that you can increase that this year by 25%, or let's say whatever it may be, so let's say you think you can make that 75 and 75. Well, you change those numbers, okay? And then you say, well, what does that number spit out to? Now, if my total compensation is my goal, then in my head I want to be 225, and by going to 75 and 75, it only gets me to 200, well, then I know I have to do even more than that. So I'm going to go back up and tweak it again. I may go 85 and 85 until I get to my desired income. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now you know how many appointments you have to make, and you know your conversion rate, what my conversion rate has to be. So this person has to do approximately, let's just say 5, because let's say they're going to miss their goal by 20%. So they need to do 5 seller appointments and 5 buyer appointments a month in order to get to their goal. I just took 5 divided by 10. I know there's 12 in a month, but let's be honest. November, December are pretty tough months, so it may be good to divide everything by 10 anyhow. Not that we can't. By the way, that's a bad excuse. It's a truth. But I know a lot of agents that make a lot of money in November, December. So don't ever use that as an excuse, because I know you guys can do it. So that's all great. However, that goes back to the monetary goal. Remember we said there were several goals we could talk about, and monetary was one of them. What's another goal we talked about? The bait of real estate. What was it?
Lead tracking, conversion rates, coaching.
Lead tracking, conversion rates. Great. I tried going back, it didn't work. So conversion rates. Conversion rates are just as important, are probably the most important part of your business, because conversion rates are what allow you to work less and earn more. And that's what we all want, right? We all want to work less and earn more. I would hope you guys would. I know I do. So conversion rates are where that happens. This person has a 50% conversion rate. Well, let's assume that they have a goal of increasing their conversion rate to 70%. Okay? I don't have a computer in front of me to do the math, but if you change that, well, I do. I have the next graph will show you some conversion rate changes. Okay? So when I can change my conversion rate, so appointments times conversion rate equals buyer-seller listings, seller/buyer listings times conversion rate equals gross income. So obviously the greater that conversion rate is, the more sellers and buyer listings you get, and the higher gross income you get. And I'm just going to go straight to this spreadsheet so it's very clear. Okay, as you can see here, I know it's a little hard to see, that's a 50% conversion rate, 50% conversion rate on your listings. Now if I simply, this same exact person, does no more appointments, okay, doesn't mean any more buyers or sellers, does the exact same. So they keep their lead generation the same, but obviously their conversion rate on lead generation is probably going to increase too. Let's just assume their lead generation stays the same, and they stay at their same poor 50% converting leads, let's say 20% leads to prospects. But they simply increase their conversion rate on their listing presentations, their buyer presentations, and during their listing and buyer presentations, they do a better job at educating their listers and their buyers of the process, that we're going to have to reduce your price if it doesn't sell, we've got to price it aggressively to get it sold, all the things that we should be doing, okay? So that would increase this conversion rate, meaning that instead of 50% of the people that you work with as buyers and 50% of the sellers, now let's say 75% of those houses sell, or 80% in this example, okay? So this person increased that conversion rate, increased their buyers, listing appointments to buyers taken, or listings taken, meaning buyer broker agreements, and then 80% conversion on the buyers they're working with to the buyers that actually buy. So by doing nothing more than increasing their conversion rate, they can go from making $165,000 a year to $450,000 a year. Now, are conversion rates powerful? Absolutely. If there's one thing to focus on in your business, well, two things. One is you have to get the leads in to convert them. If you can focus on your lead generation model, and you can start tracking your leads, and you can change your conversion rates, you can double your income without doing any more work. Because maybe a little more work, because you still have to do with the buyers and the sellers. But we all know that most of the work with sellers is where? Right up here. Is the listing appointment and winning them over. Once you get the listing, it's kind of cakewalk, especially if you have a great assistant. I mean, so really our conversion rates can make us, in this case, more than double. And well, my conversion rates was higher here too. That was part of the additional income, was we recruited more agents. Because I say if you can convert more buyers and sellers, you can convert more agents as well. Would you all agree with that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would too. So by increasing your conversion rate here, it means you're going to be a better salesman. So by being a better salesman, you ought to be able to influence more people to join MacDoc Realty, which increases your lifestyle income, which overall increases your total earnings. Now the question would be, this goes back to one of our goals as being a real estate agent. It was conversion rate, it was monetary, and then I said we should have an educational / coaching goal, right? So that's how you increase your conversion rate. You don't increase your conversion rate because you keep doing the same thing every day. You don't increase your conversion rate because you wear nicer clothes. Could help a little bit. In fact, I think all our agents should wear as nice. I mean, we should all look like Alex. I'll use him as an example. You can wear what you want, but I know for a fact that people are impressed by how you look. It's a fact. If you guys would simply, and think about this as, and I'm not reprimanding anybody for if they wear jeans, t-shirts, you do what you want. You guys are independent contractors. However, we can't all look like Mr. Seeley over here. But I can guarantee you that by changing the way you look, your appearance, by becoming more professional, let me ask you, if you could change your conversion rate from 50% to, this guy went from 50 to 80%. Let's just say you go up 5%. Do the math on that when you get your spreadsheet. So if you can get 5% more listings and 5% more buyers because you have a more professional appeal, it probably equates into like $50,000, $60,000. So I would say, maybe I'll wear some dress slacks and a shirt instead of t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops to make an extra $60,000 a year. And I know it sounds funny, but it's part of being a great real estate. It's part of being a millionaire real estate agent, is looking the look, acting the part. Okay? We all know that you can do just as well in flip-flops, but they don't know that. So, part of your conversion rate, let me get back to what I was saying, is hiring a coach, attending trainings, reading, educating yourself. You may say, well, I can't afford a coach. Well, with that attitude, you're probably right, you'll never be able to afford a coach. But I promise you, if you hire a coach, it will pay for itself 10 times over. There's great coaches out there. Some people like the Mike Ferry approach, some people don't. Some people think it's too forceful, it's not for me. Well, that's fine, do the Brian Buffini approach. And there's a million other coaches out there. Who in this class has read a book on real estate sales, on actually perfecting your sales in the last 6 months? So I know Alex is reading Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I'm beating him over the head with it.
I am.
So it's a great example. Alex, how much have you gotten out of that book?
A ton.
Has it changed the way you do business and think about business?
Absolutely.
Reading a book, a $10 book, you can probably get it on Amazon for $4, but don't buy it at Amazon, buy it at Barnes & Noble. Just saying. Please, you need that place to stay in business. At least 10 more years.
I got a lease.
Okay. But yeah, I don't care. We can end that. But my point is, and I don't get anything out of this, I'm not offering coaching, FYI. I'm not going to hit you at the end with, by the way, you can sign up for Jeremy McCommons coaching for $25 a month. It's not what I'm not selling it. I'm not. But simply being around other successful people, find other people from outside of this area that are doing great things, give them a phone call. There's nobody from California that wouldn't be willing to talk to somebody in Virginia about how to increase your business. It's not a competition thing. They don't care. Just like Alex, if you had some guy from California call you, you probably wouldn't feel that threatened by him. You'd probably help him out. Yeah, I do these things. Maybe 5 or 6 things you tell him. You don't tell him your special juice. But it doesn't matter. Those things can make him better. So I think it's very important that you guys, when you're making your goals, and remember, your goals need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be challenging but obtainable. Gosh, I need to have it in front of me. All the other 5 points that we talked about, okay? But with that, I really think you guys, instead of saying, I want to do 10 more deals, instead of saying, I want to make more money, what you need to do is break it down to the lowest denominator and say, I need more leads. How am I going to get more leads? So I'm going to increase my leads this year by 100%. Because I think most people can, because I don't think we're doing a very good job as a brokerage with our agents in getting our leads. How am I going to do that? Come up with a strategy. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to do them these days, measurable, right? I'm going to make sure that I implement it by these strategies. I'm going to make it difficult on myself, but obtainable. So I'm going to come up with something that's going to stretch me as a person. Now you have your leads. Now your next thing is I need to convert those leads from suspects to prospects. How am I going to do that? I'm going to read this book about converting leads. I'm going to go to this expert. I'm going to spend $100 to go to this webinar. I'm going to go to this 3-day training for $1,000 in Vegas, whatever it may be. You know, whatever it is to convert the leads. Now I'm going to perfect my listing appointment. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it's easy to say I'm going to perfect it, but what does that mean? How are you going to do it? Write down measurable steps of how you're going to do it. I'm going to convert my listings from listings to sales. I'm not just going to take them to take listings. I'm going to use them as a way to generate income. How am I going to do that? So you can clearly see how working on your lead source, working on conversion rate, working on your listing presentation, working on your conversion rate of solds, and then coming up with a goal of how am I going to introduce agents into MacDoc in a way that makes me feel comfortable and I don't feel uncomfortable doing it. Maybe it's every time I do a deal, I ask the agent, are you happy where you are? Would you like to hear about MacDoc Realty? No, I don't want to hear. Okay, it's great, but maybe they do. You'll probably find a lot of people aren't super happy where they are. They just are reluctant to change. So if you tell them, I'm really happy where I am. I love what's going on. You can't believe it. I made $20,000 last year off introducing agents, and you can do the same. Do you have other agents at your office that are unhappy? Bring them with you. You can have lifestyle income immediately. So little things like that, increasing your conversion rates, all go into the one thing that matters most in business, because that's why we're in business, is to make money. So don't worry about the dollar amount first, or if you do worry about the dollar amount first, make sure you boil it down to the lowest denominator so that you can work back up to find out what you have to do to make that. Okay? Hopefully that'll help you guys. So the next step is to take action. So it's great that a lot of times we sit in classes and we listen to great things and we feel inspired. But guys, I never want somebody to just sit in this room and then leave here and not do something with it. Even if you do one thing, but I think that you could come out of this class and do what I just spoke about, and I think you would transform your business in the next 6 months. I think you would find that your income would increase, your lifestyle income would increase, which would increase your livelihood in many different ways. So we've got to take action. So put your goals in writing. I think it's extremely important, obviously, that we put our goals in writing. I say that, but a lot of people will just think about their goals and say, yeah, I have goals in my head. Write them. And when I say write them, it could be type them out, but I think it's good to actually write them out. So if you want to type them to keep them nice and neat, that's great. But actually take the time to write them. I actually write my goals out after I type them. I put them in Google Docs. I keep them there nice and safe, nice and neat. But I actually write them out. Because when you write something, it gets ingrained into your head. So you really need this to be put into your mind. Review your goals weekly, monthly. It's not good enough to just have goals if you're never going to look at them. Most people I know write goals and never look at them again until the end of the year. Like, oh man, I only got 20% of my goals done. Well, no wonder. You didn't even know what you wrote down in January. It's June, you probably can't tell me one of your goals. So of course you're not going to meet your goals. By blind luck, you got 20% of them. So review your goals weekly, monthly. Just so you know, real practical ways. In my phone, on my calendar, it's actually not on my calendar. I use a task it's called DUES, D-U-E-S, on my iPhone, and it pops up once a week. It says review your goals. I don't have to remember to review my goals, but every time it comes up, I stop, I review my goals. And the other thing I do, which could be very helpful for you guys, is I have yearly goals, and then when I'm done, I break them down into monthly goals. So anything I have that can have, any goal that I have that can be broken down into measurable, smaller measurements, increments, then, thank you. Anything that can be broken into smaller increments, I break it down into, so by January I have to complete X, Y, Z. By February I have to do this. Or some of them may just be every 6 months I have to say, am I here at this 6 months? So I'm not, I better get on it and get it right. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that really has helped me. So I break it down by the month. And then sometimes maybe that I didn't meet that month, because we don't always meet our goals. By the way, it's okay if you only get 80%. If you get 80% of your goals this year, you're doing really good. The most successful people in the world, if you're properly writing goals, if you get 80%, you just killed it. So don't feel bad if you don't get 80%. That is really good. So it's okay if you don't reach all your goals. Make them so they're difficult, but still obtainable. But so sometimes, like in January, I'm not going to meet all my goals that I made, all my markers for January. I already know it. I missed a couple of them. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to say, I missed that goal, I'm going to go on. No, I'm going to move that to February. Now my February became a little more difficult. That's okay. Now I'm going to put my head to the grindstone. I'm going to get going on those goals that I missed out on January. Does that make sense? So now it flows forward. Now I have a much better chance of reaching my goals by the end of the year. Break your monthly goals into accountability. I'm ahead of myself. And then I said, make today the first day of the rest of the great life. So there's always, anytime you do something great, there's always a point that you think back on. You're like, oh, that's the day that kind of changed for me. And I think for a lot of people in this room that today, not because of what I said, but because of what you'll do afterwards, because of what you'll do with it, because of the help you'll find, because of the education you'll find, because of the ways that you'll find to do better listing presentations, by increasing your conversion rates, all those things, you could really look back and say, man, that was the first day of the start of a really big thing because I changed the way I thought about it. So I really hope you guys take what I said. I hope that what I say resonates and that some of this was new for you guys. And if it wasn't new, that it has just sparked something in you to remind you of some things that you already knew about. But I'm around for questions anytime. I'm passionate about helping you guys and seeing people be successful. If there's anything I can do to help, when I'm in the office, you have full access to me. If I'm not in the office, just shoot me an email and I'd be happy to meet with you and help you guys out. So.